We are live. We're live again. Welcome to Inner Healing and Transformation Summit. It's I, Joy Mpumi, and I'm here today with Thule, who is going to be joining me as we speak on Tantra and feminine healing. Hi, Gogo. How are you?
Tacos. Hi, Takosa. I'm well. I'm so excited to be here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good as well. So excited. I was just telling you that I'm so excited to talk about this topic because my knowledge on Tantra and feminine healing, well, let me just say on Tantra is very, very small. So I'm going to be properly educated. So I'm so excited about
Beautiful.
that.
Me
Yeah.
too. I mean, it's a lot, but I'm sure we will tap into some things today that are just powerful and helpful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I've been starting every conversation with just going back and
Mhm.
just reflecting on your story, on your journey with healing and where you are right now. So let's start
Yeah.
there. Hmm.
So there are many versions to my story. But I kind of want to focus on how I got into healing and being a healer, as well as kind of how Tantra and feminine energy kind of played into the story of how I got here.
Hmm.
When I was born in Burkina Faso. I came to the United States when I was about 4 years old with my family, and so I grew up in this Western world. Though I was able to travel back to Africa many times, I pretty much was in this framework. I was born and into a family that was Catholic, and I pretty much had a regular childhood. But for me, somewhere around high school and college, I just started to feel like I needed to understand my purpose. I guess when I was younger, I thought that at some point life would just make sense when I became an adult, but it wasn't like making sense soon enough. So I started to just wonder and be curious, like, why am I here? I want to understand my relationship with God. And at first, I really just wanted to be more religious, and I felt like it was just creating more questions. It was creating more guilt and shame and a lot of different things around, just who I was and who I was trying to be and who I was trying to discover myself to be. And so I felt like I needed, I just started, to me, it felt like a spiritual crisis. I didn't know how to name it at the time. Um, but later I understood that I was going through a spiritual awakening. I was going through a depression through that awakening. And I was having a hard time just moving forward in my life. Um, and so by a beautiful set of events, I started to reach out because I was kind of the only one being curious on this level, I felt. No one in my family was thinking like this, none of my friends. And so I started to reach out for different spiritual communities. And one of the first communities that I found was this beautiful group of led by Black women, African American women. And it was just a spiritual retreat where we were in nature, we were camping, and we first did things like a Native American sweat lodge. And it was the first time that I had experienced any form of spirituality that was like earth-based, um, or just different from what I came from. And it really resonated. And from that point, I found my spiritual teacher. I got my first ancestral reading and heard from my ancestors for the first time, learned that, I had a calling to become a healer and that there were healers in my.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, so I was, I was doing, getting to know who I was through this reading and understanding that I had a calling. And from that point, I had, I met my Baba. I went through my process to be Ukutwaza, to become a Sangoma, and went through an initiation process. But however, in the midst of this, I was a young woman. I was discovering my, sexuality, my intimacy, my relationships with men. And for me, I've always kind of been like a late bloomer. So everything was very new. And I was having difficulty in relationships that were directly connected to my feminine energy, just the energies that I was allowing into my womb. And I was starting to have certain symptoms and problems. And so before I even really got into like this ancestral work, I was like really heavily studying sacred sexuality. I was studying things like Tantra. I was trying to understand, I started to get into information like your womb is a spirit, you can speak to her, and like, she, is a living being and a living essence. And, I started to hear about practices like, putting yoni eggs or crystals into the womb. And to me, all of this was just like, what? Fascinating.
Yeah.
And it was more like a personal thing. I was studying and looking, and then and experimenting a little bit, but nobody, none of my partners really knew anything about this. So it was really like a preliminary just introduction. And I have just been doing certain practices like yoni steaming and things, just to help the energy of my womb release some of the things that I was holding. Because they say that for women, we all hold energies and experiences in our different parts of our body. But for women especially, it's like, because our womb, our energy is receptive, it's like we suck up everything and we hold it here. And that's why, a lot of different, illnesses and diseases connected to reproductive system can manifest. And so I'm working on these things, and I'm learning a little about spirituality. And then I went through, the Ukutwaza process, which basically shut everything down because it was a very sacred time to, understand my ancestors, understand traditional healing, and to go through a very deep cleansing process. One thing that I found interesting, though, about the Twaza process is because spiritual energy and sexual energy are linked, I felt like the clearing and the cleansing that was happening through this initiation was also healing some of the, spiritual energy and activating it. Because in order to connect spiritually, your kundalini has to rise, and that sensual energy has to come through. It's not sexual in a sense, but it is very like orgasmic in a sense, because it's like an upgrade. It's an energy spike. Geez, I think a call came through.
Oh, we're back.
We're back. My apologies.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties. So yeah, I, my process was also revealing certain stories around my feminine energy and the things that I was carrying in my womb. One really significant memory that I had was being in a village somewhere, and being like the chief priestess. It was like a village full of women, very powerful women, and being one of the chief priestesses there. And then all of a sudden there being this energy of like the men or the patriarchy. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was many men coming, and they were like basically destroying the village, destroying the dynamic. And we had to leave and go on to this structure and this system that now we were organized and told what to do. So for me, that was just very like, wow, I feel like, a lot of things just help me understand that how my feminine energy has been repressed in this lifetime, how it's been repressed in past lifetimes and in past stories of the ancestors that I have. And so one of the beautiful things I feel about that was kind of a bonus about initiation was that it also opened up, some of my sensitivities again, and helped me just connect with the spiritual realm because when you open up your feminine energy, your masculine energy, it's helping you connect with the spiritual realm in general, I feel. So fast forward to, and the last piece of the story is just fast forward to last October, where I finally got the opportunity to do some training and some work around Tantra. I went to I've always wanted to study it on a deeper level, but I went to Ecuador to do a 200-hour teacher training program around a specific traditional type of Tantra yoga. It's called Thule Tantra yoga. And one of the beautiful things about this program was that it incorporated not only the spiritual aspects of Tantra, but also some of the feminine practices, some of the relationship practices, and understanding sexuality, and then also infusing shamanism, and understanding the traditional practices of the people in Ecuador. So it was definitely a very healing experience, in that we were doing things every single day to open ourselves up, to be vulnerable, to learn communication, to be more conscious. Tantra is very much about living our lives from a more conscious state of being, definitely connecting with the divine feminine, divine masculine, and bringing those energies into balance. But through the practices, it's like you're lifting your consciousness, opening up, and weaving all of these different energies within ourselves in a way that we can be whole and balanced. So it was very intense. Like, some moments I was like, are we really sitting down and crying again? And, but it was very beautiful.
Wow, that's just so exciting for me. I'm like, oh my God, I want to do that. I want to experience that. Because for me, the experience that I've had that is similar to that is going through my womb healing. Just last month, actually. And because I knew that I had to clear out a lot of energies in this area. And when I went through my shamanic training as well, I what I tapped into was this huge rage in my village that seems to be back in this area, both rage and fear. And I think that for women, we can talk about fear as something that we currently have, especially with the patriarchy. We hold that, and where do we store it, in our bodies? And so the other day I was doing this really deep womb healing meditation, and I was just crying because the energy was so palpable. Like, I could feel how much I've been storing so much of my rage, my anger, so much of my fear in this area. And the release was overwhelming. But I remember just at some point arriving to this certain form of bliss as well, because I think in that I had this clearing where I could now allow the divine feminine and masculine to be balanced within me. Of course, I had to do many of these healings for me to actually arrive to this place, because before it was just like so much pain, so much emotion stuck in my body, and each time there was this clearing, and then I arrived to that blissful orgasmic thing we're just talking about, which you call Tantra, right? Or I want us to break down what Tantra is, because I have my own idea of Tantra, and it's like, I'm thinking India Tantra, so let's break down what Tantra is.
Let's break it down. So first, Tantra is a very ancient practice. It was initially an initiation tradition. So the wisdom, the teachings were passed down from guru to disciple. Okay. It wasn't so much based, though there's tons of ancient scriptures and texts, it was really about having a lived experience. And so Tantra is very broad in the sense that it's really about, there's different lineages and there's different paths within. It's like, if you think of an umbrella, there's different ways that you can go. In its whole, the word speaks to weaving, or union, bringing things into balance. And so the Tantras usually describe this through the feminine energy and the masculine energy. It's a very devotional practice of merging the Shiva and the Shakti within us, awakening to universal knowledge, self-realization, and just developing our state of consciousness. At its core, the practices of Tantra usually involve conscious breathing, conscious moving, and conscious rituals. So there's mantra, there's different chants that are said, different breathing exercises that are done, different meditations that are done, or even yogic and moving practices. Now there is also basically like two main approaches that people speak of. There's like the left-hand path and the right-hand path, or white tantra and red tantra. And basically what it means is that there's the path where you're more like the monk, where it's really about spiritual purity, spiritual discipline, and some people actually refrain from sexual activity because that's a spiritual energy that they're trying to transmute and cultivate. And then the other path is that of connecting with all of those things, the spirituality, but also a deep acceptance of sexuality, of devotional practices that include ritual, to help us understand the gods, to help us. A lot of the rituals are about embodying the divinities within us, I think almost all religious traditions kind of have this way of worship that seems like you are like bowing down to something outside of yourself. But Tantra is really about weaving those energies and using these gods and these deities and these mantras and all these things as tools to help you remember that this is inside of you and to help wake that awareness inside of you. So that's kind of the umbrella, and under that umbrella there are those who also have very practices that are very sexual, in the sense that there's certain massages that are happening to in the womb space in order to release energy. There are certain partner exercises where there are positions or breathing that is done in order to connect with not only yourself. Almost every tantric practice, the first thing you do is that you do something to connect with yourself and your own energy, and then you learn how to share that energy with somebody else. So it's not about, sometimes in our way of life, we go into an environment and we feel like we have to like adjust to it and shrink or, change. And Tantra is really about coming into your energy and bringing that energy forth in a way that you can share and interact with the world. So the different meditations, the different yoga, and then some very conscious rituals around sexuality, like eye gazing and things that make you feel, that allow you to be vulnerable, that teach you how to better communicate. One exercise that we did in the yoga school was these monologues where we would be put in partners and we would take like 2 minutes each sharing. And this was slightly different from just usual conversation because, for example, I would be, you would be talking and I would just be looking at you. I wouldn't make any facial reactions. I wouldn't nod. I wouldn't say yes. I would just simply listen and receive. Because sometimes, like there's expectations and, we're thinking before we're hearing people and all these things, but it was really listening and then like thinking about what we're going to say. And then when it's my turn to speak, I'm not even responding necessarily to everything that you said. It's my turn to express and fully communicate. And it was just, we did this many, many times. And, it's just like, sometimes the way that we talk to each other is just very like nonchalant, day to day, the weather and the, what's going on and the drama behind it. But these types of exercises really allow you to sit, be in your body, tune into how you're really feeling and, finding the courage to express it to another human being, and being okay with how that feels. So, I feel like I've kind of been all over the place, but that's kind of the heart of what I see Tantra to be. And for me, it in general, I feel like Tantra is a very, it's not necessarily a direct path. It's really about tuning into just your energy. For example, the practice of reciting chants and mantras, it's very feminine in the sense that, even though you can do a mantra for like prosperity. You will sit and you will do the mantra, and the words don't necessarily have to do with prosperity. They're actually talking about the goddess of prosperity. And so you're doing this mantra and you're focusing your intention, and then maybe a past life memory comes. And it's more of this internal guidance system for healing. It's not necessarily like I do this and I get this. It's about opening and seeing what's there and infusing that into the wisdom that comes from that into our experience.
Mm. Wow,
Yeah.
it's so powerful. I mean, I'm learning so much from that. For me, what I'm tuning into, and it's, as you speak, I'm thinking about all these conversations that I've been having about the divine feminine. Yesterday, I
Yeah.
was talking to Mahanda about really being grounded in the body and how a lot of us were not being grounded in the body. And later on, I was discussing with a friend of mine of how it's making me realize how, for example, if I'm being intimate with a partner, I might actually not really know how that touch really feels because we're often so disconnected from that simple thing of being touched, and you're thinking about how to respond and what this means, but not really being grounded and present and really intentionally witnessing yourself and your sensation and the other person's sensation, and just being present and open and surrendering to the moment, to be with someone. And I think that this is not something that we are taught, first of all, to even do that to yourself, as per se, to just presently witness yourself and surrender. And I've been doing a lot of meditation that has been opening me up in that way of, if I'm sitting still with no expectation, no intention, where might I go? And just going with the flow of our basic, not basic, but like primitive energy. Where could it take me? What can I learn about myself? So I mean, that's what I'm tuning into when you speak about Tantra. But I'm sure it's so much more and more
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah. And yeah, that's definitely a big part. And our intimate relationships and how we connect our bodies with other bodies. And for me, the certain things around being present, especially when we're being physically intimate, feeling the sensations in our body, linking our breath with our partners. Sex can be very, very healing. It can be an energy session, Reiki session. You can put your hands on each other's hearts and send, like all the things that and I feel like one of the things I really love about the consciousness around sex and Tantra is that, men can really support women in their own healing, because our energy is more receptive. And sometimes when we're engaging sexually, we want to perform or we want to make it pleasurable for him. And so I know one of the womb issues I had was that in the past, before all of this spiritual stuff, was that I was allowing, men to kind of thrust and be inside of me at their rhythm and not necessarily always the way that it felt good to me. And at a certain point, like, I shut down on the inside, and it wasn't out of like fear or, not wanting to communicate. It just, I didn't know, I was learning and I was open. But over time, it's like, okay, you're making it more about the other person. And now, your womb is shutting down, and, we have the capability to, go into trances. We have the capability to see other worlds, but we have to be open. We have to be connected. And so our partners can really help us learn how to receive. There is this, for example, this orgasmic meditation is what they call it, where a woman is laying down and she's being massaged for 20 minutes. And that's all that happens, for example. Her partner is massaging her, and she is just breathing and receiving and seeing how that feels, for example. And, And that just gives us space to cry. It gives us space to feel. It gives us space for things that are just sitting in our womb to move and flow out, and be released. And, a number of different things can happen. Different sensations in your body can wake up that have been dormant. Certain memories. I remember watching it was this really beautiful fictional movie that was based on truth, where this woman was like erratic, like, there was this, it's about the couple. She was just erratic. She was having mental health issues. Her husband wanted her to go see like some type of psychiatrist. She ends up finding like a Tantra master in secret and starts working with this Tantra master. And engaging with him, she gets a memory of when she was younger, where she was sexually abused, and all of the erraticness that she had been living in her life and the disconnect with her partner had to do with this abuse that happened when she was younger, that she had completely forgotten about, but it was sitting in her body and was able to be released and brought back through this practice. So to me, it's like there's so much space for, of course, intimacy to be pleasurable, but then there's so much opportunity for healing. There's so much opportunity for a deeper connection. And I feel like these practices really just allow us to slow down, slow down, slow down, be present, breathe. Our breath is the gateway to the spiritual realm, so, and there's a lot of tools and techniques in order to it, but honestly, if you just came from a space of slow down, breathe, what is my body naturally bringing forth, and then because your spirit and your chakras are also interacting with your partners, what is their energy saying to you? And it becomes this dance, which Tantra is so much about. It's about the dance between the masculine and the feminine energy. And shoot, it only gets higher from there. It goes higher from there.
So powerful, so profound. I'm having so many ideas coming to my mind of how a lot of things that manifest in our bodies as women, even just understanding any difficulties that we have in this area with the womb, with our menstruation, with our just like with our pH level and all those other things.
Yes.
Are really connected to to our emotions, to our traumas, to our unprocessed traumas and unprocessed emotions. And I think that a lot of people are not aware of that experiences that we go through when we're young, but also not just young, but our ancestral lineage, our past lives can come up and manifest in this life. And that it's an active thing that we need to be doing. But at the core, like they're saying, healing calls you to be present with yourself, to be here, grounded in your body. And there's just this need to honor and witness your experiences, because a lot of us, we tend to just shut down, abandon ourselves, abandon where we are, the experiences that we've had, and we imagine that then that's it. Well, okay, but they will keep coming up. They will come up with the issues that you might be facing, and I want to talk about that. I want to bring it to the room so that maybe people could start really to understand and contextualize it to themselves. What kind of difficulties might manifest in your womb if you haven't really released and let go of all these emotions that have been said.
Yeah. Just to make sure I'm clear, you're talking about the different difficulties and blockages that can happen in the womb, correct?
Yeah, because of in the womb, and also just with feminine energy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, definitely on a physical level there, we are all aware of like things like cyst, issues with infertility, certain digestive disorders, vaginal dryness, different, it's just a lot of things that can happen in our wombs when we stop communicating, when we're taking care of everybody else, and giving more than we're receiving. It can create just all kinds of things physically. In terms of our feminine energy, and I feel like I heard one of the other ladies speaking about it, but one of the other ladies speaking about it, but it really tends to affect our ability to listen to ourselves. So our intuition, we're constantly asking for guidance and clarity and wanting to go somewhere, figure out how to achieve certain things in life. And when we're not allowing the feminine energy to flow, it's like we can't hear ourselves. We constantly question, we constantly doubt. We have a hard time communicating our needs with other people. We don't let people into how we're truly feeling because we're holding, trying to please other people, trying to make the situation and the environment around us okay. But then it's like we're creating destruction in our bodies, in our feminine energy. It really blocks our wombs are also, in our feminine energy, are our ability to manifest, to draw things to us, the homes, the money, the food, the partnerships. So you may find women who have a hard time with feminine energy have a hard time manifesting and bringing things in a way that it's grounded and it stays. Sometimes we get into patterns where like we constantly having a hard time in a bad relationship. We're constantly having a hard time in our jobs and our careers because there's something in the way that we create. And I know for me, it's been a lot of like, it's very easy for me to become very logical, to be very much in that masculine warrior, like I gotta figure it out. I need to know how it's gonna happen and in what order. And it's just like, that can make you so rigid sometimes. It can make me so rigid sometimes. And it's like, it's so important on a spiritual level, on a feminine level, for us to be in a state of flow, for things to be able to come, for things to be able to go, to not be so attached to things leaving, because then we can tap into fear of abandonment, fear of loss. And it's like the balance of the feminine, the masculine energy is a level of acceptance, because things are meant, even though we have this ability to manifest, we also have the energy of destruction in us and of letting go and being able to release, not necessarily hold everything. So again, it's this dance. But yeah, I feel like those are some of the main ways that, the feminine energy affects us physically and spiritually.
Yeah. When I was doing my womb healing, the mantra that I was using was that the womb is not a place of pain and fear. The womb is a place of creation and birth. And I started wanting to do womb healing because I started to notice patterns in my life. One, I really resisted creating art that I wanted to be creating. And I knew it wasn't about my mind or writer's block or something like that, but just this deep fear of creating and trusting my creation, and because I felt that my room, I didn't really trust my room, and so I don't trust creation, what it can actually offer me, and I started to really find that connection with like me not trusting my creation because I don't trust my room, I don't trust my womanhood. And then I realized as well that one of the issues or the experiences that I had that made me not trust my room is when I manifest. There was a period where I was manifesting unavailable men who would come and we would get into this very toxic savior healer role where I'm the healer and they come with the crisis and we're there trying to resolve it. And that was like a pattern that kept, that kept coming. And what I would do is create as a way to stop this cycle from just ongoing and ongoing. I just loosen my trust on my room and
my apologies, Joy. I'm sorry, can we pause? Somebody.
So we're back. So we got
Mhm.
disrupted there for a moment. Yeah, so I was talking about how, so what I would do is sometimes when you shut down and you move away from your womb, because that's what I feel like I did. I was not grounded in it. And so what I did was literally stop anything connected to creativity, birth, sexuality to flow into my life. And I went through a period of just being, it seemed, uninterested in relationships, in men, in attracting men, in even just seeing men, because I had to, like, somehow it's like I just traveled outside my womb and I didn't want to do everything related to creativity or sexuality
Mm.
or Tantra or anything orgasmic that was also about
Yeah.
other people, about, the divinity outside myself, although it's always
Mm.
inside you. So, I mean,
Yeah.
like, that's when I realized this connection that for me, if I wanted to say, bring in or vibrate myself to where I can consciously connect with someone at that, orgasmic level, I would have to be
Mm.
grounded in my own womb and trust this feminine energy and be okay with it, and what it can create, and not assume that it will always create pain and fearful experiences for myself.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, that's deep. That just reminds me of like just how much stagnancy can happen. Feeling uncreative, feeling like you can't. Um, and I don't know, sometimes for me it's like can't succeed and actually like, because sometimes we start to do something but then we don't finish, you
Mm.
know. Um, and it just reminds me of how sometimes a lot of times women ask me like, okay, well, how do I tap into my feminine energy?
Mm.
And it's hard to describe, at first. It's like I could give you a bunch of things to do, but that's not how my process unfolded. I had to start with what is happening with me. you know like I had to learn myself. One of the first things I heard is talk to your womb. You have to believe that you actually you have a relationship with it, and that she is responding to you. And then I just started to notice things about my own womb. Like, one of the things that I just find fascinating is that, for example, my menstrual, I told my womb, like, I don't want to wake up. I don't want to be surprised by you. And it's like she always comes like right when I wake up or something.
Mm.
And I speak to all the energies in my wombs. I speak to the future children that are sitting there waiting to come. I speak to, when I want things in my life, sometimes I visualize it sitting in my womb, because and it birthing out of me. And these are things that I just naturally came into because I was just learning myself, and what's going on with me. I learned that, like with most women with this creativity, one thing about aspect of Tantra is just art, and it's really important for me to, I have creative things that I do as my work, but there's always something creative that I'm doing that has nothing to do with somebody else. I like to just sit on GarageBand and sometimes just record songs and chants that come to me naturally. I love to bead and make things and that nobody else needs to see, and then other people do see. So I'm always, in order to stay in the energy of creation, you need to use your hands. You need to share some of the ideas that are sitting in your head. You need to bring some type of activity or action around the ideas and the things that naturally flow out of you. To me, tapping into the feminine energy is definitely doing something that, I was talking earlier about how Tantra isn't always about this direct result. It's doing something that has nothing to do with any direct result, and that's why, meditation is kind of supposed to be about that, but sometimes we impose certain desires on meditation, like we want our third eye to explode, and we want all the ancestors to come and speak to us, but meditation is supposed to be about just being, and having 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to just be, to just breathe, to cultivate just a few minutes in between those thoughts where you're not stressing about something. You know, a lot of times I find that, you know, and you know how sometimes you're working on something and it's like you're not figuring out, and then figuring it out, and then you just take your eyes off of it, you just do something else, and you come back to it and you're able to see the answer. That to me is Tantra. That to me is the feminine energy. It's allowing yourself to just be, to open, to flow, to ground yourself, to just be in nature. You know, one of the beautiful things about just being in nature is that, and observing nature, is that nature is just being, and life is happening. You know, life is producing, life is growing. And, you know, I also had to tap into, you know, to me, like, if we're trying to tap into the feminine energy, we're trying to tap into the womb needs to move. Like, we need to move our hips. We need to open our hips wide. You know, those yogic positions where you're opening the hips wide and you're stretching it out. Like, if your hips are like stagnant and stuck and ouch, and, you know, you have to look at your physical body too. Like, if your hips are open and moving and fluid and swaying and dancing, you know, is a big part of how I connect to the feminine energy. Like, that is all important. And of course, there's these beautiful practices where, you know, you can use crystals, and, you know, you can use certain herbs and steaming and clearing. It's very important. I have found to have some herbal teas as well. Things like, at least here on the West, there are things like red raspberry that keep the energy of the womb toned, that help release certain things that we're holding. It's really important to have bitters in our life. You know, we tend to have like salty things and sweet things, but bitters are really, really good for the womb. Bitters really help us release anger. It helps us release certain things in our blood. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily seems like a bitter would, but the bitters help the womb be more sweet and be more active and be more in flow. So yeah, there's just you know, I could go on forever and ever and ever. But yeah, that's what I see.
That's amazing. As you're speaking about like beaches, I'm also, from what I've learned, but I don't know how right it is, but people also recommend salt and apple cider vinegar as something that you could use to heal and clear out the toxins in the womb and so on. But I'm not an expert at this. I'm always like, what do you know, you as the expert, you know? For some reason, as you're speaking, I just downloaded. When I was looking at you, it felt like I'm looking and seeing you surrounded by like moons. Those things behind you, they just started to look like moons. And I think it's my sister saying, you know, connecting this to this topic of the feminine energy, of how Mother Moon is really, really this very feminine energy element in the cosmic, right? And how, like, for me, I know every time when I'm going to the full moon, and we recently just went to the full moon, my, you know, the feminine aspects of me are really activated and really present. And I mean, it's always quite a good time to do healing work. But I know that a lot of things are palpable, like my emotions are really high. I recognize and realize a lot of things. All this unprocessed pain comes up that I wasn't aware of. So I mean, like, maybe we can speak about the, you know, the feminine energy beyond ourselves, you know, in the elements in Mother Nature, and how this connects to us, and what we can do, how we can tap into that energy as well to heal ourselves.
Yeah. Definitely, you know, almost all traditions have different ways of recognizing the feminine energy around us. The moon is often, you know, like you said, very associated with the feminine energy, whether it's in darkness or it's in full moon. It, in any phase, it represents our ability to go within, to tune into what is hidden, and, you know, what is, you know, bringing light to things that are in the dark. and tapping into our intuition. The feminine energy is also sometimes it's usually associated with like the left side of our body. So nurturing and doing healing around things that are going, and paying attention to things that are happening on the left side of our body. Nature, I mean, everything about nature, but especially the element of water, and incorporating water rituals. I feel is really, really connected to the feminine, whether that's, praying with water, or, bathing and cleansing with water, speaking to the element of water. That has helped me a lot. I even did, I believe last year or the year before, I even did a whole program with women around awakening our sacred waters and our communication with water, because that is so much connected to the ancestors that speak through the water, and also the feminine energy, and a lot, and helps us learn how to be more fluid, to learn how to be in the flow. It allows our emotions to come up, and so that we can see how we truly feel about things and what needs to be released. So that's, to me, it's using the elements, and using these symbols is really significant. And it's also significant to see what symbols are speaking to you. It's funny when you said that thing about the images and the moon. It just reminded me of a dream that I had of the moon, like being very, very present and vivid and like glowing in my visions. And it's like, not only is the feminine energy represented in nature and around us, but it's speaking to us, and it's speaking about, our relationship with her. It's telling us what we need to pay attention to. And, I was in a journey and a meditation one time where I just had this deep, because to me, all of this comes down to the first mother, the divine mother, the mother nature. Almost all traditions speak about like Pachamama and the earth energy. And I had this deep experience where I was crying and crying and releasing. And it's like the divine mother, it was just speaking about how, like, everything that we think about, like how we don't trust this and we feel off about this, like it is all connected to the fact that we have lost connection with her. We have lost connection with the earth. Like, we don't trust that things will be provided for us, because we don't trust that nature, because nature is abundant. Nature is always providing. The divine mother she's a nurturer. And it's like all of those things are connected to our relationship with her. And in this journey, I just realized that I needed to just repeat, I trust in the divine mother with my whole heart. I trust in the divine mother with my whole heart. Like, I had to rewire my mind and my energy and my spirit to really believe this and know this to be true. And so, there's certain, just a lot of different symbols. There are certain birds and totems that represent the feminine energy, the lioness energy, the crows, and the old grandmother energies. But it's to me, it's like, and then there's all these goddesses, right, and deities. And there's all these practices around. All of the goddesses are just the divine mother in her different personalities and aspects. So when she is very sensual and happy and laughter, she has come in the form of Oshun. When she is about destruction and removing things out of your life, she can come as Kali or Oya, or all of these, there's so many goddesses. And the point of these symbols in nature and in spirit is for us to learn something. Every messenger, every spirit messenger, every symbol is helping us learn a lesson, helping us activate a certain energy within us. If Oshun or Oya, if Lakshmi, if Kali is coming to you, or those energies, are present of the moon, it's like it's telling you, you need to remember that this is you. You need to remember that this is who you are. And you can come, you can make offerings to this deity, or you can say the chants of this deity to help your spirit remember that, and activate that part of you again, so that you cannot worry so much and just flow and be laughing and it be more easier for you to experience pleasure. Because sometimes when we're going through a hard time, it's like you don't want to smile, no jokes are funny, and it's just like, and after a while it becomes your state of, the way that you live your life. And so Oshun comes, and I've had ceremonies where I've experienced with some of these goddesses, and she's just laughing and laughing and laughing, and you can't help but laugh because she's helping you remember that this is a natural ability. And why aren't you doing this? Like, what is the bullshit that you're holding in your mind right now? It's not worth it. Laugh. Be free. And it's funny because the other day I had this, and you can cut me off whenever you want because I can go on and on, but I had this, I always asking questions to the spirits, and sometimes they come and just say the simplest things, like I'm waiting for this deep download information. And it's like, I saw these goddesses the other day and they were just like, enjoy your life, be free, have fun, like just relax, and it's just like, it's so simple. It's so simple. Just surrender. And I know that there are definitely hard things that we've been through that, we just need support. We just need somebody to hold space. We just need, to tap into, the messages that the spirits have for us about where the root of the issue is. And then there's the rituals and the ceremonies and the practices to support us. But I'm very much like, for me, I feel like I've always been a woman who is very much more in tune with the masculine, and the divine feminine energy is something that I'm remembering in this lifetime. Same. And it's just like, that is my thing. Like, I want to be free. I want to be free. And, no hesitation, no holding back. And every time, conversations like these and experiences just remind me, like, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? And, we keep looking for permission, especially as women. And I just hope that we can continue to reflect that, that permission within each other. Like, it's fine.
I was just with a friend of mine, and we're just talking because we personally think that we are the funniest people alive. Like, I think she's the funniest person I know, and she thinks I'm the funniest person I know. And I was telling her that, I used to have like all this non-negotiable in a relationship. And now for me, currently, I feel like the most important thing is you really have to love laughing, because I'm funny and you have to laugh at my jokes, but like, and because I feel like when I'm laughing and laughter centered there, it's the purest version of me, I'm really being here, present, and all of that, So as you're speaking about, be free and laugh and you have fun, it's what comes to my mind is, I think that a lot of us are actually afraid of pleasure. We're afraid of Tantra, orgasmic lives, like to create a life where there's freedom and laughter and just happy vibes all the time. It's something that we've convinced ourselves we cannot have, that there's always supposed to be struggle and pain somewhere, because otherwise, can we really exist in that kind of blissful orgasmic energy all the time, And for me, I'm walking into that, the idea that my life can be pleasurable, it can be orgasmic. I actually wrote that the intention for this year is to activate the orgasmic in my life. Right. And what's the orgasmic? I'm discovering, because I realized I never paid attention to what is orgasmic to me, what is pleasurable to me, what makes me feel, centered and connected and grounded and just deeply in flow with Mother Nature, and this walk, part of it required me to first of all understand that I am nature myself, that I am nature. I'm all that which is in Mother Nature is also present in me. I am within Mother Nature as she is within me, and activating the pleasurable, the orgasmic, it's not, it's just tuning in to what is already within me. It's not going to discover what that is. It's just remembering, it's just remembering who I really am.
Yes.
And that journey it's really beautiful because I'm discovering lately that I really actually have a potential to be a good dancer, and I never knew that because I never danced and I restricted myself because I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm good at this, and I don't even know the first time I learned this that I'm not good at dancing. But now that I'm bringing this in, the idea of orgasmic breathing, I'm dancing more, and I'm like, wow, you really know how to move your hips. That's really, really good.
Mm.
You should do this more often, and you should definitely do this with friends and your partners. And it's exciting for me. I'm no longer afraid of the pleasurable, the orgasmic, So I think that as women, we are afraid of this. We're afraid of the idea that you could actually, have that kind of tap into the state of pleasure, of orgasmic, of tantra, more than you're stepping into the pain and the struggle, and
Yeah.
it's sad at some point, but it is all a journey that we're all in. I mean, there's
Yeah.
gratitude for the journey, for the way that it is, and just perceiving it like that, it can be orgasmic as well. Like all of it is beautiful, all of it is Mother Nature emotion. But then
Yes.
also come to the idea that it could also be expanded. Mother Nature can quantum leap herself to orgasmic creation and orgasmic living, and that can be true for me too.
Yes. Wow, absolutely.
I don't have a question.
Yeah. No problem. Yeah, I resonate with that. And especially just the importance of being able to tap into feeling good, pleasure, having fun. That's a really, really, really big piece. One of the things, though, that I really appreciated about your conversation with Vangile was about, you guys spoke a lot about the mother wounds and how that was connected to finances. And I very much feel like it's connected to everything, of course, as you all were speaking. And it it's funny just reminding, that's one of the things that I'm working on, because I didn't really realize a lot of I mean, there's just things that I knew but I didn't really notice. Like, for example, in my in Burkina Faso, like, I've been there many, many times, and almost every time we go to my father's village. I've never been to my mother's village, and it's there. There are a lot of things about, like, my mother's side of the family. Like, I just a couple of months ago, I was home, and for the first time I sat down and actually, like, did a family tree with her, and all these stories came from that, and I just realized that I hadn't been paying attention to it as much because the father's energy was just so much more strong, or because we live in patriarchal times, I don't know, and I just realized, I've been realizing, the conversation was just interesting to me because I had been realizing how much I need to really, like, put a magnifying glass over my mother, over her family, over the ancestors on that side of the family, and how big of a part of the things that I have been not paying attention to have been have been a part of the disconnect that I feel at times in certain, aspects of my life. And it's like, I'm just realizing this, and it's making me now go back to all the things that I've been struggling with my feminine energy. And now, like, what does this have to do with my mom? I never asked my question of myself until like directly, I've never asked that question of myself directly until, like, literally a year ago. And so, and when I just think about a lot of the ways that my mother is, like, she's the most amazing woman on the planet to me, honestly. And I'm just really looking forward to going deeper into this mothering thing and seeing how it has impacted my life on the spectrum of feminine energy. And I really, for me, balancing the feminine energy, has everything to do with the mother's energy as well, the ancestors on the mother's side, the women in the family. And, for me, Tantra and ancestral healing are very much connected. They're almost the same. When you start to look at the rituals, balancing the divine masculine, divine feminine, like, who are the principles of divine masculine, divine feminine in our lives? Our mother and our father. That's the first place that we learned those energies. That's the first place that we started to understand what we could be like and what we couldn't be like. So it's like, for me, it's all connected. And it's like, I sometimes, I used to think that it was kind of hard. Like, how do I balance all this sacred feminine, want to be sexual, and then this ancestral stuff? But, there's no separation, and the ancestors are involved with everything because they see it all.
Yeah.
They involved. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I started healing my mother wound in 2017, just really tuning into it. But now, as you're speaking, I remember part of one of an exercise that we had to do in our psychology, our last year of psychology. It's something called a process model, and it's just essentially creating like this manifesto of your life, and it requires you to, to the family tree, to look at your time in the womb, in your mother's womb, and what kind of energies were you experiencing during them. And obviously that's you asking your mom how her experience was when she was pregnant, and just looking at the first 5 years of your life, and just the kind of environment that you're living in, and looking at your relationship with your mother during this period and all of that. In psychology, we really know that the beginning years are literally when you're forming your personality, and you're forming a lot of the energies that you're later going to heal now in your adult years, or repeat as patterns and so on, right? And so when I had to do the exercise of asking my mom, and I discovered one, I was born almost 11 months. Like, I just was refusing to come, like 10 months, 3 weeks. My mom was hospitalized for weeks because that baby Joy wouldn't come.
Wow.
And I was her first child, And so my mom had a lot of anxiety, and she was 19. So she was really scared and didn't know if she would survive. And so there was just a lot of that. And because I was also born 6 months after my mom and dad, not 6 months, like I was, my concept, is it conceptual? My mom got pregnant with me 6 months after meeting my father. So there was just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of that fearful energy during my birth, and a lot of anxiety, And I later, now when I was doing my own healing, I realized how, and other things as well. Like for me, anxiety, the state of anxiety and fear and thinking about the future was something that I used to function from. And it's because my first time in this world, in terms of like being in the womb, although I have this idea that I probably came later in my mother's womb, because I was, having conversations with ancestors about what my mission is on the side. But that energy that I was introduced into the world with, it's the one that I carried, that I think and believe that for many years also my womb was vibrating with. I was vibrating the same frequency as my mother's womb during the time that I was born. And this is why the motherhood, understanding your mom's experience and understanding that you really inherit your mother's belief system, you inherit her perception, you also inherit her vibration and frequencies during this period where you spend a lot of your time with her. So this is like your beginning years. And just like looking at what is empowering and disempowering you, So for me, when I was doing this process model and I learned about what the energy that my mom had during that time, and just seeing the patterns in my life, and also just my relationship. And I grew up with this huge fear of getting pregnant at a young age. So I was very like closed up with my sexuality and my sexual energy altogether, and so my feminine energy, and so my creative energy. And so it would seem I was a light bloomer, but it was mainly driven by fear that I would repeat. And if I repeat my mother's experience, I would also have the same kind of emotion that she had. And this was happening unconsciously to me. I wasn't aware that I resist being in a relationship with a man because of this fear. Of course, it was also introduced to me by my mother that if you talk to a boy, you're going to get pregnant, and that was a valid fear of hers, that she wouldn't want me to go through that, being pregnant at a young age. But like that's how powerful the motherhood is. It's just something that I work with because I think it's really, really deeply present for daughters. And if you're a first daughter, even more present, because we have a tendency of sharing pain with mom, because you tend to happen to become almost like the second mother. If you have other siblings like me, I have a younger sister, and I became a second mother even at a young age. There was this shared solidarity with my mother, and so repeating her patterns and how she tapped into her feminine energy, I did the same type of way. How she tapped into her creativity, and how she did was she was afraid of it, and so I repeated it. I also got afraid of my creativity. So it's you can't actually have any conversation without talking about our matriarchs and our mother wound, our matriarch wounds, and our ancestral wounds as well. They are. We want to talk about money. We want to talk about relationship. We want to talk about our wounds. This will come out,
Yeah, absolutely. It's powerful. It's deep work. It's deep work.
Yeah, it's deep,
beautiful.
necessary work. So necessary. Sometimes people get scared that when we say the mother wound, it means that you would hate your mother and you might be stuck in that emotion. I mean, that happens sometimes when you realize how you've been affected by your experiences with her. You can get stuck with, oh my God, I didn't receive this and this and this and this. And then eventually, one of the workers, one of the most renowned healers who's worked with the mother wounds is Bethany Webster. And what she teaches you about dealing with the mother wound is that eventually it will lead you to learn to be your own mother, to mother yourself. And it's not in a way rejecting your mother's role, but understanding that the archetype of the mother, which is that essentially mother is supposed to support me, be unconditional love, be this perfect superhuman being, is actually crippling you and crippling your mother and how you connect with her. And that you can also nurture yourself. You can also connect with yourself. And then you can connect with this person from, the divinity lens of, understanding them as a soul, as well as you, with their own experiences that you are also part of, and with your sacred contract that you guys both have. And obviously it takes time to get to this because there's a lot of layers to release and to discover, understand, and heal when you are looking at your mother wound. But where you arrive, the moment you started looking at this, is you're going to arrive. For me, I arrived to a place where one day I woke up. I mean, I think I felt like for many years I was angry at my mother. And then when I started doing this work, one day I woke up and the anger wasn't there and nothing had happened, like physically. She didn't say anything to me, but like there was just this deep peace and acceptance of our sacred contract together, and the lessons, gratitude for the lessons as much as they were painful, and just this deep love for her that I had never felt before. And I